journey on the path of the seeker. Today I just wanted to share a meditation on the zodiacal season of Pisces. On my blog, every month I pull an oracle stone for the beginning of the month and for the zodiacal season. And the reason I pay attention to the season is because it's the energy that's in the air. So it doesn't just affect the people born during that time. And the season is based on where the sun is in the sky. So depending on who you talk to and the different theories, the idea is that the sun is sending photons these days, since people use science, to our planet, and they're filled with the energy of the astrological sign that it's traveling through in our sky. And so the sun is currently going to be in Pisces, and so we are marinating in the energy of Pisces along with the sun. And so if you choose to believe in a God or one creator or all that is, whatever name you want to call, some ultimate power that is conscious on some level and consciously created our cosmos instead of random chaos that nihilists believe in, or most people who believe in science believe in. If you believe there's a rhyme and reason to the universe, then there's good reason to pay attention to the symbolism of the different zodiacal seasons so that we know the energy that we're participating in. And Pisces is a fascinating sign because it is the 12th sign of the zodiac. So it is the final sign of the zodiac. And it's kind of the energy of closing a door. And it's very similar to the concept that the Buddhists have, that we all return to an ocean of oneness when we cross over. And if you're lucky, you merge back into that oneness. In the Buddhist tradition, they want to merge back into the oneness, or what Thomas Campbell in his My Big Toe, which is my big theory of everything, he calls it the absolute unbounded oneness. And that's one form that reality takes. But in addition to that, and the part that we are in, when we are incarnate at the very least, but very possibly when we are in between lives as well. I love the book Journey of Souls. That definitely impacted me, and I do believe there's life in between lives. I don't believe that you just end up in this cycle of karmic incarnation where you just like recycled into forms without any free will or choice. And of course, it's interesting because both the Leo King and Adam Ellenboss recently discussed on their astrological channels if there is free will or predestination. And it's very interesting that that is coming up in the collective this year. Now, at the beginning of every year, I do something called a theme of the year based on the entertainment that's coming out. In our society, the mystics and channels that are most accepted are people in like the movie industry and people who write books and that sort of thing. And I think more people are into movies and in tune with the collective conscious that way than any other form of entertainment. And even if the movie's made a year, 2 years ahead of time, it comes out in perfect timing. And this year, I'm calling it Freaky Friday vibes. Last year was a new power structure. And boy, did a new power structure emerge with the Ukraine war. But this year, it's Freaky Friday vibes. And of course, it's been Freaky Friday. We have the U.S. government shooting down all kinds of flying objects, some of which might just be hobbyists' balloons. but one was just definitely the Chinese vibe balloon. We have the crazy train derailment, and people saying that basically a town was nuked in the process of a controlled burn to prevent an actual big explosion. It's just a fascinating year already. And so here we are in Pisces season, and everybody's talking about fate and predestination. And that's a very appropriate topic for Pisces. Pisces symbols, I'm going to give you a little better look here, are two fishes swimming in opposite directions that are connected. So it doesn't seem very efficient. It's not like the two fishes are going to get anywhere, and if they were actually in the ocean that way, they'd probably drown after exhausting themselves. And the symbol by itself is that the two lines connected here. So it looks like an H. And during Pisces season, you can meditate just on these symbols and learn quite a lot and really tap into the archetype that is Pisces. It is a very, very deep sign. I'm going to go a little bit more into it in my Pisces new moon video. And we don't always have a new moon in Pisces, so this is lining up pretty awesome. A great way to meditate, to do an active meditation on any symbol, is to do a drawing of it. And that's one of the reasons why Paul Foster Case created a coloring book of the tarot cards for people to use, because you learn the different colors and their meanings and that sort of thing. But for today and for this meditation, I want to touch upon a few other things. And like I said, I do pull an oracle stone for each of these. For now, I might change it up and just do runes, or I might do both like I did today. But the oracle stone that I got for Pisces is called a Shiva Lingum. And this brings up a lot of different archetypes. Shiva is very interesting, and it really made me think of the alchemical marriage and how the equivalent to that is actually the Kundilini awakening in the Indian tradition. And it's very interesting that two different groups both experience the same thing, essentially, in very different ways. And because I'm inclusive, I can draw those conclusions and make associations based on that. Now, it is funny because Adam Ellenboss in his astrology channel was talking about a transit recently, and he mentioned that everybody would talk about having Kundalini awakenings, which were so rare. But I don't know if they're so rare. I've heard quite a few people talk about them. I never experienced the chakras that way, but the Kundalini awakening has to do with Shakti. And the belief is that there's Shakti, that she is in the root chakra, and that she travels upward in a dance into the crown chakra, and that process is a Kundalini awakening. Now, in the alchemical marriage, the description is very similar. The energy travels up from the root chakra, and it goes all the way up to the crown chakra. I've heard that described best by D.W. Hawk in a video. I'd have to find it somewhere, but he does an interesting video on how that energy could be awakened and rise up. Personally, however, I experienced it very differently. Well, my chakras and working with them. And the book that I want to share with you regarding that is the 7 Healing Chakras. And I have a few books, as you can tell. I'm going through different ones, doing different things. You might hear my husband working on stuff in the garage in the background. But what really amazed me is that, unlike most people, I actually started at the crown and worked down. My crown chakra was open. My third eye chakra was way open, and all the way down to the heart. And then my lower chakras were not so open. And so this is a typical depiction of how the aura and these chakras work. And this book is The 7 Healing Chakras by Brenda Davies, and is a fantastic book. I highly recommend it. I was disturbed when reading this to find out that by opening up those chakras, you would become a channel. I had no idea of the idea of basically embodying the divine or the universal forces. And I thought the only way to channel was to channel another being from another existence or dimension or whatever. That's the only reference to channeling that I knew. And that frightened me when I read this book. But that's not true. Instead, you can choose to embody and channel more of your higher self or the divine. And a book that I highly recommend if you want to work with astrology, and this is one that I never put back on my bookshelf, this is always out on my desk, is called High School Astrology by Granny Rainbow. It's a fantastic book, and it covers all the different archetypes. Granny Rainbow, or Arissa Victor, also wrote Thursday Night Tarot, which we'll be referencing in my new moon video. I always work with the symbolism. And within here, we have a lot of information. But I just wanted to share what she says about alchemy, because I think it's very important. Tree of Life, Divination, kind of working backwards, there we go. So here she's talking about alchemy, and she was a student of Jason Lonergan, who was a student of Paul Foster Case. And she says, alchemy is the process of refining or spiritualizing one's own body and awareness. Alchemists have existed in many countries, including Europe, India, China, and Arabia. This form of inquiry into the nature of matter was popular in medieval Europe. The alchemical laboratory is the body. As the practitioner becomes more conscious, the body becomes filled with light. The person vibrates at higher and higher levels. Eventually, spiritual alchemists emanate goodwill and healing energy to all beings in all situations. The great work of self-realization has been accomplished on a personal level. Their energy, combined with that of other light workers, extends to all people. Raise their awareness so that humanity may accomplish the great work on a global scale. The Philosopher's Stone is an alchemical term for the self. Philosopher means lover of wisdom, and stone stands for stability and solidity. An awakened master is as strong, humble, and enduring as a rock through being established in the self. There's much more here, but you can see also she covers the chakras and she connects them with the planets. Now, I do see this differently. I don't understand why the microcosm would be different than the macrocosm. So the microcosm being your body, the macrocosm being the galaxy. So she has the sun here, and then you have like Venus and Jupiter. And if these were rotating around the sun, it doesn't actually add up. So I do see that a little bit differently, and I've gone through that in my chakra videos and other videos. But there's a lot of great information in this. And like I said, I have many different references for a reason. I did also pull out my Hermetic Alchemy book by Paul Foster Case, The Golden Dawn. It's Alchemy Series 2. As you can tell, I have a lot of different notes here. But I just wanted to pause here and show how Saturn, Mars, Jupiter, soul or sun, Venus, Luna or Moon, and Mercury, and how it connects them to different biological parts of the body. And it's really interesting because the other person who also did the same thing, I think I marked it in here, is Edgar Cayce. This is Edgar Cayce in the Kabbalah. And what's interesting about Edgar Cayce and his mystic readings is that he did a lot of them for someone who was into the Kabbalah, a Jewish person. And here we see the crown with the pineal, the third eye with the pituitary, the throat chakra with the thyroid, heart with the thymus, solar plexus with the adrenals, and the navel with the cells of Leydig, root chakra with testes in male or ovaries in female. And here you have a different depiction. The three serpents, head, heart, navel, and genitals. And it has numbers attached. And of course, all of that connects together to explain how the energy travels up through the chakras. And a great Kundilini book is this one by Om Swami. And there are many wonderful things. It says how to meditate on the chakras. For a determined and sincere practitioner, piercing the first two chakras, that is, root and sacral plexus, requires a devoted practice of 1 year each. Subsequent chakras need roughly 6 months each. This is assuming that you are able to devote an average of 2 hours every day, each day of the year. Those 2 hours should be split into 2 sessions of 1 hour each, or 3 sessions of 40 minutes each. So, personally, I have meditated and worked through that on my own for many, many years. And so going back to the Shiva Lingum, Oracle Stone, this is a stone of fertility. And when it comes to the sign of Pisces and Pisces season, that fertility is going to be on the level of the spiritual self. So this is a time to plant seeds on your spiritual self, on your consciousness, and really developing that spiritual ideal and spiritual perception, which is hard. And it is the basis of all of the magic that I do, is to tap into that subconscious, because it is your connection, it's your divine phone line to the divine source. Within your subconscious is your connection to your higher self, which is also directly connected to the one creator or God. And also connected is your connection to the collective consciousness. And in addition to that, you also have your shadow. So the only way to bring all of that into your conscious awareness, to not be buffeted by these universal unseen forces, is to recognize them, knowing what season you're in, knowing that you're in Pisces season, knowing this is the season of the mystic, this is the spiritual season, this is the season where you're going to be drawn back into group think. And I have an entire theory based on reading out-of-body experiences books is about near-death experiences, and journey of souls. All of us as souls, when we start off, are collectively like a hive mind. We collectively have groupthink. And it's the process of being human and individuating us that makes us different from other unseen forces like the angels, who basically act in unison with the mind of God. They are basically extensions of the mind of God. And so we start off as extensions of the mind of God, connected with God, and we incarnate into the illusion of separation, which is physical material reality, to borrow a Thomas Campbell term. And we think that we are separate and isolated, and we suffer greatly for that because we're on a spiritual level used to being connected. And Pisces season represents that knowledge of all of us being collected through the subconscious through what Jung called the collective subconscious. But I believe you can become in tune with and conscious of it. It's one of the reasons why I do theme of the year based on the movies that are coming out. And the movies that are coming out this year are super duper weird. So we've touched on all of that. And I think the last thing I want to do is kind of more of a rambling chat meditation than it is anything that I wrote down. I'll do more of the in-depth Pisces and Neptune and Jupiter as the original ruler of Pisces. I will do a whole video on that for the new moon. And that's one of the reasons why I don't want to go too much into Pisces in this video. Plus, we'll revisit this next year. So, I was basically wanting to share. I'm going to share how the alchemical marriage is very similar to the Kundilini awakening, where you summon the energy from the root chakra and it travels up through the body and into the crown chakra. As I said, for me personally, my crown chakra and my third eye chakra were wide open. My root chakra, not so much. And I think a lot of people do operate more from a root chakra level, but I have always been more aware of the unseen realms and connected. Never not felt oneness. I've always been able to tap into the oneness that Pisces represents. And it took many, many, many years for me to realize that most people don't feel that oneness innately. And they can't tap into that divinity. And I didn't know it was so strange or so weird that I could. Now I want to finish up by drawing a rune. I'm just starting off the runes. So give me just one moment. I might have to use my guidebook for them. But it's kind of fun. Do this in a moment for those of you watching this video. I didn't do this for the blog, so see what we got. Alright. I think this is called Nothies. Not exactly the best rune. Nothies is kind of like, I've pulled this before. I have just started working with the runes, and I may do a whole rune series, but if you're interested, by far the best on YouTube is Aerith Harger. It's Arthaharger. Awesome guy. Very fascinating. And I very much enjoy his videos, even though I wouldn't be considered an animist. He does animism, kind of his preferred mode of spirituality. And okay, this is Hagalots. No, not Hagalots. These are neither. Sorry, I'm having to look up the rune Urus. Oh, this is one I haven't had pulled. So this is Auroch, the Wild Ox. Now I'm using this book here, The Beginner's Guide to Runes, Divination, and Magic with the Elder Futhark runes. And it's interesting, I am a strange mix of genetics, and I am Northern European, so I do kind of wonder, if I have Norse ancestry or how that works. The Norse were pretty much wiped out systematically by Christianity, like so many other groups. So those who practice the Norse religion were so completely wiped out that I don't think anyone even remotely knows what their religion was. It's just a lot of guessing at this point. Even the alphabet, the runes, is just interpretation based on a Christian scholar for the most part. And really, older sources really don't exist. Like many, many spiritual traditions, it was an oral tradition. And those who were practicing probably they were killed off by Christianity. It's horrible, but that's just how things were. So this is Uruz, the Auroch, the Wild Ox. Keywords: ox, health, vitality, and strength. The rune of the aurochs, a wild ox that roamed Europe, Asia, and North Africa just hundreds of years ago, finally becoming extinct when the last auroch was killed in Poland in 1627. The auroch was the ancestor of the domestic cattle, the precursor to the cattle of Fehu. It's a rune of primal earth energy. So this is wild, untamed potential. Very, very fascinating to get this rune when working with Pisces. So we have an incredible combination of symbols here. We have spiritual oneness, absolute unbounded oneness, that connection to our subconscious, which is the connection to our higher self, divinity, the collective consciousness, and the shadow. And we have fertility in the Shiva Lingum, which, as I said, comes from a river, a holy river in India, and it represents a penis. And so when you combine the fertility with unlimited potential, and then Pisces being spiritually unlimited potential, originally ruled by Jupiter, which is the planet of expansion, but ruled by Neptune, it's even more boundless and overflowing and abundant. I mean, just think of all the life in the ocean. I mean, the largest mammal on the planet is in the ocean. So, incredibly fertile time, wonderful time to start projects, to launch things. There's a lot of Aries energy right now too. So yeah, great, fortuitous, auspicious signs. These are great. I mean, that you can't get any better than that. Combine that with, the fact that the Shiva Lingam for me reminded me of the Kundilini awakening, the alchemical marriage, which are basically the same thing in two different systems. You can debate whether or not how rare they are or all that stuff. I'm not one of those people who is an elitist. Don't think that this type of thing is only meant for some people and it can't be accomplished by everyone in this lifetime. To me, that's a bit silly. But thank you for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderfully abundant, fortuitous, fertile